Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You know what time it is, you know what we do here, and I want to talk to you today about a little game called Stalker. More specifically, Stalker Anomaly, the Gamma mod pack. Now, Gamma stands for Gigantic Automated Modular Mod Pack for Anomaly. For all of you who don't know, Anomaly is a entirely almost reimagined version of the original Stalker games. Now, I won't get into the technicalities behind that. I know they took the old Stalker games, ported it over to a new engine, added a bunch of mods to weld the games together and make some sort of crazy new experience from that. That's essentially what went on, but I'm not going to get into the specifics. I want to make this video today talking about STALKER Gamma from somebody who has fresh eyes on the game. I just started playing this a few weeks ago after kind of putting it off to the side for a few years because I have this condition when a cult-like group of people glaze the shit out of any type of media, especially video games. I tend to avoid it like the plague because I think cult-like thinking is sick and nothing makes me want to vomit more than a bunch of sheeple meat riding a video game. It seems cringy and pathetic, and I just didn't think jumping into a game that was that old was worth it at all. I thought these are just a bunch of yahoos like any other cult out there who loves to rave about their favorite video game. So, you know, I wasn't interested, but let me tell you here and now, as somebody who is an outsider, who's not a part of this Stalker community, who just so happens to be a fan of tactical shooters and games with great gameplay loops, like I'm a big Tarkov fan, and also somebody who is more of a PvP type person. I'm not a huge PvE single player type of gamer. So yes, let me tell you, this is probably the greatest experience I have ever had playing a video game. STALKER Gamma is hands down the most engaging, layered, and enticing gameplay loops I've ever seen. Playing this game and understanding the mechanics only as of a few days ago. A few days ago, I was finally getting the last bits and pieces of what you're supposed to be doing in the game, because I gotta tell you, there's a lot. It's an extremely steep learning curve, and this is coming from somebody who plays Kerbal Space Program. And for all of you who don't know what that game is, it's a literal game based on rocket science where you have to shoot rockets into space and get into orbit and go to other planets. It is incredibly in depth, and Gamma was difficult for me to really get my head around. And getting my head around it made me understand why people play this game over and over and over and over and over again. Now, I want everybody here to understand I have not played the old games. I have not played any other mod pack, although I am planning on to after this. STALKER Gamma has made me a very convicted fan, and not just because of the unique mechanics that are in Gamma itself. Yes, I've done my research on what makes Gamma a unique experience. I know that all of these different mod packs center focus around specific experiences, Gamma being one that's more of a survival shooter where you have to eat and drink, but more importantly, find weapons and repair better guns and get equipment for better armor, so you're not getting one-shotted by crazy mutants or AI bandits. Gamma's gameplay loop centers around finding better equipment and finding items around the map that will repair that equipment and help you upgrade it and be more useful, because the game is incredibly punishing and hard. So now that I'm done this segment of the video and kind of just really broadly summarized what this game is actually about, I want to get into the specific details of what makes this gameplay loop so incredibly engaging and why we've never seen a game like this before. I truly feel almost upset, one, with myself for never picking this game up before and really giving it a good try, but also because I almost feel burned from other shooters, that the gameplay loops and survivability aspects of games like even Tarkov don't even run nearly this deep. And I'll get into some of the more important reasons and break them down, because this is multi-layered. The reason the gameplay loop is so incredible is because it loops like an onion. It has layers, as survival looter shooter type games should have. The best way I could really put it is that STALKER Gamma has many gameplay loops on top of one another that all influence each other and are integral to the entire gameplay loop overall. How they've balanced this and how they've worked this out would have taken Einstein level genius to get this working in a way that's engaging and fun and is an experience that people want to play over and over again. And that's almost exactly what they've done. This mod pack was completely community driven and has been made by thousands of people, all making the mods as well as community members voting on what they wanted in this game. The fact that this game is old makes it good because it's had time for people to add the specific mods, take away specific mods, and cater to unique experiences that the community community has been able to evolve into the game over time, making it the perfect game. In my opinion, is the closest thing to perfection out of any tactical shooter I've ever played. This is a survival game, a tactical shooter, a horror game. There's so many things going on here that I really feel overwhelmed trying to put together how I should describe what's going on here in Stalker Gamma. But boy, let me tell you, I'm gonna try, because this is a game I'm kicking myself for missing out on for so long. And I want to start off with more of the surface level stuff and then get into more of the meat and potatoes of it, because the more complex aspects about this game are things that you need to try to really like understand and know why it's incredibly fun to have in a game like this. And starting off with things majority of you people are probably already going to know is that the world has factions. So there's many factions. I think there's 8 or 12. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm newer to this game, but I've done a whole lot of reading and watching YouTube videos about it and how this came to be a thing and why this game might be so special as it is, and formulated my own opinions here. But it has many different factions, all factions that you'll interact with, that you can join, that have specific missions, that have different fighting styles. Within the factions have different ranks. The ranks also affecting their fighting styles in terms of accuracy, in terms of how bold and courageous the character is. Say you're fighting a group of bandits, which is a faction in the game, and you're fighting a novice bandit and you kill his buddies, he's going to be blind firing more. He isn't going to want to push you as much. You're going to hear him screaming voice lines and actively being worried, as opposed to if you were to fight an experienced or an intermediate bandit, they'll be pushing you, throwing grenades. The longer you're in his line of sight, the quicker he'll be able to hit you. That is one of like the 30 things I want to talk about here that makes the fighting alone in this game incredibly dynamic. So with several different factions, you have several different skill levels within the factions. Like I said, a layer within a layer that makes a dynamic gameplay loop. Moving on to my next fairly obvious point is A-Life. A-Life is a marketing term for a system that GSC Game Worlds developed way back in 2004 or 7 or whenever these games came out, to have an entirely persistent world, and not like an open world, because it's a semi-open world. You have to load into different areas of the map, but persistent as in all the NPCs. So all those factions that I mentioned are all doing stuff. They're fighting, they're gaining control over territories, they're fighting different AI monsters and mutants that are on the map. They are reacting with the world without you even having to be there. And for people who don't understand the importance of A-Life, or don't really understand the system and have played in a game such as Stalker with advanced A-Life mechanic involved, A-Life for me does a few things. Of course, it makes the world feel alive. When you load into a map, you may hear gunshots like 3 kilometers north, way out into the distance, and know something's actually happening there. You can just go there and see the aftermath of what may have happened. But it can also do other things, like when you're on a mission, say, and you have to go to a specific area. And since it's a survival game, maybe you need to stop at a POI along the way to hit a campfire so you can start the fire, you can heal at the campfire, maybe cook some food, eat. Let's say you're showing up to this POI and there's a lot of dead things there, like dead faction members, and you think to yourself, were these guys A, killed by mutants, B, killed by mutants a long time ago, C, killed by an enemy faction, or D, killed by an enemy faction a long time ago? And then it leaves you considering, is that enemy faction an enemy to me, or whatever faction I chose to be in today, or are they a friendly faction? So showing up to this POI where you are in desperate need of a break and some food and the free healing that the fire provides to you, you think to yourself, well, if it was option B and they were recently killed by mutants, are the mutants still around? Are they stalking the area? Because those sons of bitches can sneak up right on you and kill you right away. Are they low-level mutants like Flesh, which are like mutated piggy things? Or is there a Chimera lurking about, which are very good at stealth and can jump like 25 meters out of a bush and one-shot you? These are all things you have to consider. If it was an enemy faction that had killed them recently, maybe you heard the gunshots, but you don't see anybody there, so they're patrolling the area and they very well could come back. Or if it was a long time ago, you could feel safer looting the bodies that are there and then just setting up camp. The game always makes you feel on guard, and that's what's so cool about it, because you never know what's going on, but you can use your eyes and ears to really build a story in your head about how you want to go about moving from one area to the next. I'll give you a real world example of this. There's an area in Stalker called Cordon where you start, and slightly north of Cordon is like a little base where factions typically like to hang out. They're not always there. Sometimes it's even a different faction, but it's a bandit stronghold. They really do like to hide out there. So of course you go there, and almost always there's going to be bandits there. You kill them, use the campfire to save and heal. You set up shop, and say you want to crash there for the night, or you have to do something behind that stronghold, like take out some mutants or something. You're taking your sweet time. If you're there for like 1 or 2 in-game hours and start to leave, you will likely run into another group of bandits trying to go there and set up there, because that's how the A-Life system works. People don't just like spawn out of nowhere. They actually like go places. They actually go to areas that they prefer to be. Typically when I leave that little bandit stronghold, I run into a group of bandits who are on their way there to set up, getting into this massive fight that was completely unexpected, because I don't know how far up the road they are or if they're even showing up at all, and it doesn't happen every single time. It makes me going from Rookie Village, the starter area, to clearing out bandits, to taking out some mutants, and then wanting to go back to the starter area to collect my rewards from quest givers insanely dynamic. You might be running into this group of people wanting to populate the area again. And this example is of an early game example. This is something that affects you more so as an early game player, and my examples will largely be based off this, because I would say equipment wise I'm probably around mid game, even though I've done almost none of the main story quests yet because they're all way too hard without like end game gear to do, which is probably the next little segment I should talk about here, because really I'm going off a script here because I didn't want to forget how I feel about discovering this game and how special it really is. The next part about this, and this would be to the Gamma mod pack specifically, would be the gameplay loop of getting better gear, fixing stuff, getting better guns, and trying to become less vulnerable to this dangerous zone. So in Gamma right now, there is an extremely complex looting and gear system. And let me start with something a little bit more easy to understand about this loot system, is that almost all loot in this game is important. This is such an extremely cool part of Gamma, because this is only done in very few games where everything you find matters, and there's so many things too. I feel like the only other games that like really do this are this silly VR Tarkov like game called Exfil Zone, and Tarkov itself, like where you need everything to do hideout upgrades, use stuff for crafts, or use them for trading in. And Tarkov's adding more things to their looting mechanics, such as like the ritual thing where you have to sacrifice loot and stuff like that. Tarkov's done well with making all loot and gear important, but Gamma has turned this up to 11 because Gamma has such an in-depth repair system for your guns and your armor. So in Gamma, when you find something really cool that you want to use, chances are it's going to be broken as shit. So you find an AK, the bolt carrier is going to be at 2% durability. The gas block is going to be at 15% durability. The trigger mechanism is going to be broken. Like everything's going to be busted, and all that influences a percentage chance of the weapon jamming. And the more components in a gun that are really damaged, the more your gun's going to jam like crazy. It's just going to jam either every shot. It's just going to be a piece of shit. It's very difficult to actually find a gun out in the zone that is working and is relatively useful, because chances are it's got a shitty ammo type in it and it's just got busted parts. This works similarly with armor as well. But let's stay on the guns, for example. So with the guns, you could field strip them right then and there, which is taking part of everything that your character can physically take a part of. And in Gamma, it's everything but the barrel of the gun. Unless, of course, you have a multi-tool, then you can actually dismantle the gun, but then you can't put it back together. It'll just be the pieces and components of the gun. There'll be the barrel, the trigger mechanism, the gas block, all that kind of stuff, right? So say you find a gun you really want to use. Oh, and by the way, Gamma has over 250 guns or something like that. It's unbelievable. They're all unique. They all have unique calibers. They all have different ammo types, but I digress. So you take this gun, you bring it back to your hideout, and I'm going to poorly explain this because I've only done this a few times, being that I am a new player. The gun can either be an A, B, C, or D class weapon. You need an A, B, C, D, or C class weapon repair kit. This repair kit will let you swap out the specific components of the gun for ones that you can buy from a trader, or that you found out in the zone that are better than the commonly piece of shit ones that are in the gun at the current moment. If you have that weapons repair kit, you can use the workbench to actually swap out the barrel. You can use that workbench to swap out the barrel, which is the most crucial part of the gun, being that you need that weapon repair kit to swap out the barrel. Now you want to keep this weapon repair kit because it's specific to your gun, and you might need it for other A-class weapons, let's say for this example. But say this gun is really cool. You want to get it in a working state and you have no extra barrel for it. You can actually use a consumable part on that weapons repair kit, which typically they come with 3 until they're completely kaput. You would use that consumable, actually fix the barrel, and then swap out the rest of the components that you've either found or bought from the traders. Now you have a working gun, but not without an arduous journey. To find that weapons repair kit, you needed to hit high value stashes, that you needed to do missions to find the coordinates for, or you needed to get together enough components to actually build that weapons repair kit, or you need to level up a trader, which wasn't something I wanted to get into in this segment of the video, to be able to buy that weapons repair kit. And I'll say this again, you actually need to make sure the weapons repair kit matches the class of your weapon, whether it's A, B, C, or D. But that's not all. You need a weapons toolkit as well. And there are 3 classes of this. The first class is called the basic tools, which only work for guns you'd expect them to work with, like AKs, Makarovs, shotguns, like things like that, right? The better the weapon is, the more effective, or like the more badass the weapon is. Say you find a really cool MK18 or something like that, chances are you'll actually need a more advanced toolkit. Toolkits are something you need to find in stashes, or again, you could make them or buy them from traders. And toolkits, I believe, are things you can either make. I'm not sure. I know for sure you have to find them, but I think you might be able to make them at a very expensive cost. Because I realize for anybody who's never played this game before, probably won't understand this. There's so many levels to actually repairing and getting a gun or a piece of armor working. It is so multifactual. There's so many specific layers to it, but trust me, it's not as complicated once you start actually doing it and like understand the different toolkits as well as weapon repair kits. And I apologize because I probably explained it like shit, but those are the 2 things you got to focus on. It's a specific class of weapon repair kit and the specific tool set to that weapon, as well as all the components you need for that gun. And I won't even get into the weapons cleaning kits that you can get. You can get the cleaning kits, take the pieces of the gun out, actually clean and fix the component if it's not under a certain percentage of damage. It's all incredibly complex and things that you want to keep with you in order to maintain your gear out in the field, so you're not stuck trying to go to a workbench and doing all this stuff over again. Now, what this mechanic actually does is gives you such a sense of ownership over that gun, because chances are when you find that gun, you are using it, but it's being a pain in the ass. Its aim is blooming, it's jamming a lot, but holy shit, I found that gas block that I needed for that gun, and it's actually in decent shape. As long as I can get a cleaning kit for that specific part, I could get up to 100%, and then I could swap that part out and get the right gas block for this new gun that I found. Eventually you grind to a specific point where you actually have fully fixed this, say a Mosin, you find a Mosin out in the field, you finally fix it up completely, which could take a few hours of gameplay, and you're like, damn, I'm using this Mosin, it's not jamming on me. You immediately feel more powerful and more effective. For anybody who thinks that type of gameplay loop is too much of a grind, it's not, because the reward pays out so much more, because that grind makes you so much more deadly in the zone. And when you're killing bandits and clearing POIs so much faster because you have the right type of weapons to do so, you feel like a boss. And that begins a tiny process called a snowball. You start snowballing, you start collecting more gear, more items, more components. By the way, you can also strip guns and rip them apart for the components that you need. A lot of them are universal, or at least cross-platform. Like if you rip apart a pistol, those parts can work with different pistols. It's same with armor. You can actually take apart the armor as long as you have the right toolkits to do so. Those toolkits you need to actually keep in good shape. You have a multi-tool, you have to sharpen it with a whetstone. The whetstone wears out, you got to make sure you're buying more of them. There's a ton of gear management in the game, but it's not in a way where it's a huge pain in the ass. And it sounds like a pain in the ass because I'm describing it. And when somebody's talking to you about a game, of course it's going to sound more stupid than actually playing the game and having fun with the intended gameplay loops themselves. Okay, thank God. That's all I really wanted to talk about when it came to that part of the game, because it is incredibly complex, and I've had somebody explain it to me before and I didn't understand it at all, so I don't blame you. But it is a huge part of the gameplay loop, trying to find better weapons and gear, and then parts for them, and then toolkits to fix them, and items to repair it, and on and on and on, and such and such. And so it's a huge part of Gamma's gameplay loop specifically. And if that's a little bit too complex for you and you just find yourself not enjoying it, there are other mod packs that are super similar to Gamma but don't have that in-depth repairing and replacement mechanics, like EFP, which is another mod pack that more closely resembles Escape from Tarkov. Now the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, complete immersion. Now the A-Life does help with the immersion part of it, that wherever you go, it's always going to be different. There's always going to be different patrols or different mutant types that could be in this area that you've never seen before, making the encounters always unique in this game. But these mod packs have beautiful overlays and reworks of the weathering system, the grass, the audio, everything in the game is ranked up to 11 in terms of sounds and visuals, and a very potent art style that just really grips you in that world, which kind of leads me to thinking of an important aspect about the game when it comes to dynamicism, which is the emissions, the storms that happen every now and then. When a storm happens and starts kicking up, you need to find shelter and actually hide in somewhere with a roof so you're not getting pelted by radiation from this psi storm or an electric field storm. There's different types of storms, of course, in this game, being that it is so complex and has so many different aspects. Now these storms play a cool role in this game that help with another side of the dynamicism, and that is of course artifact hunting and anomalies. Now anybody who plays Stalker or any games that have emulated Stalker in the past know about anomalies and collecting artifacts, right? You go out and there are these physics defying anomalies that if you touch will probably kill you because they are defying physics. You don't want to be a physical form in the 3D dimension and touch these physically defying anomaly occurrences because it'll probably just shred you apart, like stepping into a black hole or something. They look weird, they're trippy, they make sounds, you don't want to touch them, they're mysterious, but within them are little things called artifacts, which are these alien type objects that you can use for player buffs, or you can sell them for some good money. You have artifact trackers, and you have some bolts that you can throw into the anomalies, because some of them are kind of hard to see. When a physical object hits the anomaly, it activates it and helps you see where it might be. You're carefully stepping through this anomaly field to pick up these artifacts and then trying to step away. And the reason the storms play a role in this is because the storms actually respawn all of these different types of artifacts. All these artifacts do different things, by the way. They're called different things, they look different, they give you different buffs or debuffs depending on what they are. They will spawn back randomly, and the anomalies will spawn back in a dynamic way. They'll be in different places. There's a dynamic anomaly system in the game that makes them not the same every single time. So if you're grinding artifacts, this isn't something you're just going to learn how to do and just do. This is something that even if you're going to the same anomaly field to get an artifact, the artifact's going to be different, the anomalies are going to be in different spot. You're always going to have to throw your bolts and make sure you know where you're going, unless of course they're the types of anomalies that you can see better, whether it's an electrical field anomaly or any other type such as that. Now these artifacts help you with crafting in this game also. You can use them to craft other artifacts with another toolkit type item called artifact melter. You can use them to power exoskeleton suits that are in the game that function with a battery and help you move faster and jump higher, and they have better armor. Now I know this is an extremely long-winded explanation of Stalker Gamma and my understanding of what this game actually is, and I'm going to do another one when I finish Stalker Gamma and actually get really familiar with the game mechanics and what makes this game so incredibly unique and special, and hopefully do more of a breakdown and actually simplify things in terms of what I think all of that means. And the reason I can't do it now is because I don't actually fully understand the game right now. They always say like the better you understand something, the easier it is to summarize and simplify for somebody who's never seen it before. So guys, that's all I really wanted to say about what makes this game so incredibly cool and what makes it the best first-person shooter I've ever freaking played. This thing rivals Tarkov, and I know Tarkov and Gamma are completely different. Tarkov is a online sort of competitive extraction looter shooter, and Gamma is a single player experience, but Tarkov relies on PvP to keep it dynamic, right? And some in-game events. Stalker Gamma is completely dynamic across the board, except for the map. Of course, the map stays the same. But with Tarkov, you spawn into a game with everybody else all at the exact same time. You know where they spawn and you know where the enemy spawns. They're not really moving around the map doing it. At least of right now, I know they want to implement AI tasking and doing certain things around the map, and I think they'll implement that with 1.0 on Tarkov. But for now, you know where everything is, and it relies on the mind of another player to keep the game dynamic. In Stalker Gamma, like I said, a life exists and the world is persistent. There's no raid timers, just everything is out doing its thing. It's living its life. It's moving across the map. It has paths it needs to go to. It has AI that are fighting each other and factions that don't like other factions, and they're taking over different areas of the map, and everything's just moving along as you play without you being there or with you being there. It's a game that's filled that Tarkov hole for me, even though it's a single player game, which is totally weird because like I said, being a single player game and being Tarkov are just so different, right? But that's all I wanted to say for today. If you guys haven't really tried this game, I highly suggest it. If you like tactical shooters, this game has so many unique elements that you just need to discover for yourself, and I highly encourage anybody who has been curious, just step into it for the first time. There's so much more I could say now that I'm wrapping this video up and I'm thinking about what I've experienced in the game. In terms of like the MVGs, the game has some of the best night vision I've ever seen. It's incredibly realistic. Again, types of equipment you actually have to craft and find the crafting elements for. But you guys let me know what you think about Stalker if you want to jump in. I thank you guys for kind of sitting through that rant. I just really wanted to get through this and get my ideas down on this game because I still have a hard time conceptualizing why this game is so incredible and why we haven't had other games like it. But I appreciate you guys for being here, and have yourselves a very nice day.